Jimin crying in Jungkook's chest after Live, Don't Leave Me uttered involuntarily. A live broadcast shatters composure as Jimin breaks down in Jungkook's arms, exposing love, fear, and a secret that refuses to stay silent. The mic was still hot when Jimin whispered, "Don't leave me," and Jungkook felt the words crash into his chest like a held breath finally breaking. The red live icon glowed on the phone screen, a small merciless eye, as Jimin's knees buckled and the roar of the crowd beyond. The walls blurred into a distant ocean. Jungkook caught him on instinct, arms closing tight, fabric creasing under his palms, the familiar scent of clean cotton and stage sweat anchoring him to the moment. Jimin's face pressed into his chest, hot tears soaking through the black shirt, his shoulders shaking with a sob he had swallowed for years. Somewhere a staff member shouted to cut the feed, but the seconds stretched, viscous and cruel, and the world saw what they were never meant to. Jungkook lowered his head, jaw clenched, heart hammering loud enough he feared it would echo through the mic. He felt Jimin's fingers clutch the hem of his jacket, knuckles white, a habit from long nights when words failed and touch had to do the talking. The phone slipped from Jimin's trembling hand and clattered to the floor, the screen spiderwebbing as if it, too, couldn't hold together under the truth. Jungkook kicked it gently aside, shielding Jimin with his body, the way he always did, quietly, reflexively, like breathing. "Breathe with me," Jungkook murmured, voice steady despite the chaos, counting softly against Jimin's ear. He remembered the first time he'd learned to do this, years ago in a practice room that smelled of dust and instant coffee, when Jimin had locked himself in the bathroom, convinced he was failing everyone. Jungkook had sat on the floor outside the door, counting breaths until dawn. Some habits never left. Jimin's sobs hitched, sharp and ragged. His mind was a storm, images flashing unbidden, the blinding lights, the comments scrolling too fast to read, the manager's tight smile earlier that day, the unspoken meeting scheduled for tomorrow. He had tried to keep it together through the live, had smiled and laughed and joked like he always did, but the pressure had found a crack. It always did. And the words had slipped out, unguarded, raw, meant only for the space between his ribs and Jungkook's heart. Jungkook felt the weight of it, the plea layered with 1,000 unsaid fears. Don't leave me meant don't grow tired of carrying me, don't choose the path that takes you away, don't become a stranger in the room where I learned how to breathe. Jungkook's own fear surged in answer, a familiar ache he kept locked behind discipline and duty. He had always been the strong one, the dependable one, the one who stayed. But staying had costs, and lately the bill had been coming due. They were ushered into a side corridor that smelled of disinfectant and old cables. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, too bright, too exposing. Jungkook shrugged off his jacket and wrapped it around Jimin's shoulders, rubbing slow circles into his back. Jimin's tears soaked through the fabric anyway, but Jungkook didn't mind. He never did. He leaned his cheek against Jimin's hair, still damp from sweat, and closed his eyes. "I'm here," he said, softer now. "I'm not going anywhere." Jimin shook his head, a small, frantic movement. "You don't know that," he whispered. His voice was hoarse, scraped raw. "Everyone leaves. They just do it quietly." The words cut deep because Jungkook did know. He knew about the offer sitting unread in his inbox, the one that promised freedom and risk and a life not constantly observed. He knew about the conversations that ended with careful silences. He knew about the way Jimin watched him lately, eyes searching, as if bracing for impact. Jungkook had told himself he was protecting Jimin by not speaking, by waiting for the right moment. He hadn't realized that silence could wound as sharply as departure. They sat on the floor, backs against the wall, the hum of the building settling into a low, steady rhythm. Jungkook listened to Jimin's breathing slow, felt the tremors ease. He traced the curve of Jimin's spine through the jacket, grounding both of them. Jimin's thoughts drifted, unmoored, to small details that made Jungkook real and present. The scar on his knuckle from a broken glass years ago, the way he always hummed off-key when nervous, the stubborn warmth of his hands even in winter. These were the things Jimin clung to when the world felt like it was sliding out from under him. "I'm tired," Jimin admitted, the words falling heavy between them. "Not of singing. Not of dancing. Just tired of pretending I'm okay when I'm not." Jungkook swallowed. He had built his life on endurance, on pushing through, on proving he could carry more than anyone expected. Hearing Jimin say it out loud cracked something open in him. He realized then that staying didn't have to mean silence, and leaving didn't have to mean abandonment. The line between them was thinner than he'd believed. "I was scared to tell you," Jungkook said at last, voice barely above the buzz of the lights. "Because I didn't want to be another thing that hurts you." Jimin lifted his head, eyes red and shining, searching Jungkook's face. "What is it?" he asked, fear and hope tangled together. Jungkook met his gaze, steady and honest. He didn't rush. He let the truth sit between them, solid and undeniable. "I've been offered something," he said. "Something that could change things. But it doesn't mean I want to disappear. It means I want to choose us openly, not in pieces." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of relief, of grief for what had already been lost, of a fragile new understanding. Jimin leaned back into Jungkook's chest, not collapsing this time, but resting, as if testing whether the ground would hold. Jungkook wrapped his arms around him, firm and sure, and felt the weight settle into something bearable. Outside, the world kept moving, comments scrolling, narratives forming without them. Inside the corridor, two hearts beat in time, learning a new rhythm. Jimin closed his eyes, breathing in, breathing out, and for the first time that night, the fear loosened its grip. Jungkook stayed still, present, choosing this moment fully. When they stood to leave, hand brushing hand, the air felt different, lighter, charged with possibility. The tears had dried, but their truth remained, stitched quietly into the space between them, a promise not of perfection, but of staying, together, in the open. The door closed behind them with a soft, definitive click, sealing off the corridor and the noise of the building, and Jungkook felt the tension snap back into place the moment they were alone in the dressing room. Jimin broke free first. "You were going to decide without telling me," he said, voice low but sharp, the calm from earlier already fracturing. He paced the narrow room, fingers dragging through his hair, laughter and cheers from outside bleeding faintly through the walls like a cruel reminder. "Do you have any idea what that feels like? Finding out I might lose you because you didn't trust me enough to speak." Jungkook stood still, shoulders squared, jaw tight. "I was trying to protect you." "That's not protection," Jimin shot back, spinning to face him. His eyes burned, not just with anger but with something dangerously close to desperation. "That's control. That's deciding my pain for me." The words landed hard. Jungkook exhaled slowly, fists unclenching at his sides. "I've spent my whole life being the one who carries things," he said. "If something goes wrong, it's on me. If someone gets hurt, it's because I didn't hold tight enough. I thought if I waited, if I figured it out alone, you wouldn't have to be scared." Jimin laughed, but it broke halfway through. "I'm scared all the time," he admitted. "I'm scared on stage, I'm scared off stage, I'm scared of smiling wrong and breathing wrong and waking up one day realizing I don't recognize myself anymore. And the one place I thought I didn't have to be scared was with you." Silence flooded the room, thick and electric. Jungkook took a step closer, then another, until they were standing inches apart. He could feel Jimin's heat, see the tremor in his hands, the way his chest rose too fast. "You think I don't feel that too?" Jungkook said quietly. "Every time I look at you, I'm terrified. Terrified I'll fail you. Terrified I'll want something I'm not allowed to want." Jimin's breath caught. "Then say it," he challenged, voice shaking. "Say what you want." Jungkook hesitated, just for a second, and that second was everything. Jimin saw it, felt it, and the fear surged again, hot and overwhelming. "Don't," Jimin whispered, stepping back. "Don't look at me like you're already halfway gone." Something in Jungkook snapped. "I want you," he said, the words rough, torn straight from his chest. "I want you safe. I want you laughing without forcing it. I want to choose you without hiding behind schedules and excuses. And yes, I want a life that doesn't feel like it's slowly burning me alive. But that doesn't mean leaving you." Jimin's eyes filled again, but this time the tears didn't fall. "People always say that," he murmured. "They say they can have both. They say they'll stay." Jungkook closed the distance, hands coming up to grip Jimin's arms, firm but careful, grounding. "Look at me," he said. Jimin did, reluctantly, and the raw honesty in Jungkook's gaze stole his breath. "I'm not asking you to wait blindly," Jungkook continued. "I'm asking you to stand with me while I decide. No more silence. No more pretending. Jimin swallowed, throat tight. His anger ebbed, leaving behind exhaustion and a fragile, aching hope. You scared me, he admitted. When I said those words on live, I didn't even realize I was thinking them. They just came out because the idea of you leaving feels like losing air. Jungkook pulled him in then, not gently this time, but desperately, arms locking around him as if anchoring them both. Jimin didn't resist. He melted into the embrace, forehead pressed against Jungkook's collarbone, hands gripping the back of his shirt. I'm still here, Jungkook said, voice steady despite the storm inside him. And I won't make decisions that erase you from my life. They stayed like that for a long moment, the room heavy with everything unsaid finally beginning to settle. Outside, a manager knocked once, hesitant, then left them alone. The world could wait. Jimin pulled back just enough to speak. If you go, he said softly, I don't want it to be because you were running. I want it to be because you were choosing. Jungkook nodded, thumb brushing a tear from Jimin's cheek. Then I'll choose honestly. The tension didn't disappear. It transformed into something dangerous, intimate, and alive. They weren't fixed. They weren't safe. But they were facing each other now, stripped of pretense, standing in the aftermath of a moment that had already changed everything. The room didn't feel small anymore, it felt charged, like the air itself was listening. Jungkook released Jimin slowly, as if letting go too fast might shatter whatever fragile equilibrium they had found. Jimin didn't step away. Instead, he stayed close, too close for safety, close enough that Jungkook could feel the uneven rhythm of his breathing. You still haven't told me what the offer really is, Jimin said. His tone wasn't accusatory now, it was sharp with restraint, with the effort of not begging. Not the careful version. The real one. Jungkook turned toward the vanity, bracing his hands against the cool surface. His reflection stared back at him, eyes darker than usual, stripped of the practiced confidence the world expected. It's overseas, he said. Long term. Solo. No guarantees I come back the same. Jimin's laugh came out wrong, too brittle. So that's it. Reinvention. Escape. That's not fair, Jungkook snapped, spinning around. You think this is easy for me? You think I wake up wanting to leave you behind? Then why does it feel like you already have? Jimin shot back, his voice rising. Why does it feel like I'm the thing you're willing to risk? The words hit harder than any accusation. Jungkook took a step forward, hands flexing like he was holding himself back from something reckless. Because I'm tired of feeling trapped, he said, the truth ripping through him. And I hate myself for thinking that when I look at you. Jimin froze. That's what hurts, Jungkook continued, voice raw now. You're the only place I don't feel like I'm suffocating. And still, part of me is afraid that if I stay exactly as things are, I'll disappear anyway. Jimin's eyes shimmered, anger and fear colliding. Do you know what it's like, he said quietly, to love someone who's always halfway looking at the door? Jungkook's throat tightened. Do you know what it's like to stay because you're scared leaving would destroy the person you love? They stared at each other, both breathing hard, both exposed in ways they'd avoided for years. This wasn't a fight about schedules or careers or rumors. This was about the quiet, private terror of choosing wrong. Jimin broke first. He moved closer again, close enough that Jungkook could feel the warmth radiating off him. I don't need you to sacrifice yourself, he said. I need you to stop deciding I'm too fragile to hear the truth. Jungkook reached out before he could stop himself, fingers hovering near Jimin's wrist. And what if the truth scares you? Then let it, Jimin whispered. I'm already scared. The confession cracked something open. Jungkook's hand closed gently around Jimin's wrist, thumb brushing the pulse there, grounding them both. The contact wasn't innocent, but it wasn't crossing any line either. It was loaded with everything they weren't saying. There's more, Jungkook admitted. If I take it, people will talk. Not just about me. About us. About things they already speculate but don't dare say out loud. Jimin stiffened. So this is about hiding again? No, Jungkook said firmly. This is about whether I'm brave enough to stop. The room went very still. Jimin searched his face, as if trying to read the future there. And if you don't take it, he asked. Then I stay, Jungkook said. But not like before. Not silent. Not half-present. I stay honestly. Jimin looked down, jaw tight, emotions warring across his features. When he spoke, his voice trembled. I don't want to be the reason you resent your life. Jungkook lifted Jimin's chin gently, forcing him to meet his gaze. You're not a reason. You're the question. That did it. Jimin's composure finally cracked, tears spilling over as he leaned into Jungkook again, this time not collapsing but clinging, as if choosing him back in that moment. Jungkook wrapped his arms around him without hesitation, holding him like something precious and breakable. I hate that this is so hard, Jimin murmured against his chest. Jungkook pressed his lips briefly to Jimin's hair, a quiet, intimate promise. If it were easy, he said softly, it wouldn't matter this much. They stayed there, breathing each other in, the noise outside fading into insignificance. Nothing was solved. No decisions were finalized. But the distance between them, the one built from fear and silence, was gone, and for the first time, the future didn't feel like an ending. It felt like something dangerous, uncertain, and real. The silence didn't last. Jimin pulled away abruptly, wiping his face with the back of his hand, anger flashing back into place like armor snapping shut. You keep saying honestly like it's a solution, he said, voice trembling with restrained heat. But honesty doesn't stop people from getting hurt. It just tells them when to brace for impact. Jungkook watched him, chest tight. I know, he replied. But lying guarantees it. Jimin scoffed and turned toward the mirror, staring at his reflection as if it belonged to someone else. Do you know how many versions of myself I've buried just to survive this life? He asked. Smiling Jimin. Perfect Jimin. Unbothered Jimin. I don't know how to be anything else anymore. He looked back at Jungkook, eyes sharp. And you want me to believe we can suddenly be real without everything collapsing? Jungkook stepped closer. I want you to stop thinking you have to disappear to be loved. The words landed like a slap. Jimin's breath hitched. Don't, he warned softly. Don't make it sound like I'm the one choosing this. I'm not, Jungkook said quickly. I'm saying we've both been surviving instead of living. And I don't want to keep doing that with you. Jimin laughed again, this time bitter and broken. You think I don't want more? You think I haven't imagined it? His voice cracked. A life where I don't flinch every time your phone buzzes. Where I don't wonder if today is the day you realize I'm too much. Jungkook's face hardened, pain flashing through his eyes. You are not too much, he said, each word deliberate. You're the only thing that feels real when everything else feels staged. That was dangerous. They both knew it. Jimin shook his head, backing away as if the words themselves could burn him. This is how it starts, he whispered. You say things like that, and suddenly I start believing you. And then when it all falls apart, I'm the one left trying to pretend I didn't hear it. Jungkook closed the distance again, frustration boiling over. Why do you assume it will fall apart? Because it always does. Jimin snapped, tears spilling despite his effort to stop them. Because nothing we have is allowed to exist without consequences. Because love like this doesn't get a happy ending, it gets buried under headlines and silence. The room felt too tight, the air thick with everything they'd never dared to say out loud. Jungkook reached out, then stopped himself, hands hovering uselessly at his sides. I can't promise it will be easy, he said quietly. I can't promise it won't hurt. But I can promise I won't walk away without facing it with you. Jimin's shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of him all at once. That's what scares me, he admitted. If you leave quietly, I can survive it. But if you stay loudly, and it breaks, he swallowed hard. I don't know if I'm strong enough to lose that. Jungkook finally touched him, palms warm against Jimin's arms. Then don't lose it alone. Jimin looked up at him, eyes red, searching. Are you saying you'd risk everything? He asked. Your future. Your freedom. Your name. Jungkook didn't answer immediately. He thought of the years of discipline, the expectations, the invisible cage built from praise and pressure. Then he thought of Jimin crying into his chest, saying don't leave me, like it was a reflex, like a truth his body had held onto long before his mind caught up. I'm saying, Jungkook said slowly, that I'm tired of pretending my heart doesn't get a vote. The honesty stunned them both. Jimin's breath shuddered as he leaned forward, forehead resting against Jungkook's shoulder, exhaustion washing over him. I don't want you to stay out of guilt, he murmured. I'm not, Jungkook replied, wrapping his arms around him again, this time gentler, steadier. I'm staying because walking away would be the lie. They stood there, tangled together in the quiet aftermath of truth, neither fully healed, neither fully certain. Outside, the world waited with its opinions and its demands. Inside, two hearts beat close enough to remember why staying, despite everything, still felt worth the risk. The knock came sharp and impatient, cutting through the fragile quiet like a blade. 5 minutes, a voice called from the other side of the door. Management needs you. Both of you. Jimin stiffened instantly, instinct kicking in, spine straightening, expression already starting to rearrange itself into something presentable. Jungkook saw it happen, the mask sliding back into place and something dark twisted in his chest. See? Jimin said under his breath, pulling away. This is what reality looks like. Jungkook caught his wrist before he could step fully out of reach. Don't do that, he said quietly. Do what? Jimin asked, not meeting his eyes disappear. Jimin finally looked at him, and the frustration there was sharp enough to hurt. I don't have the luxury not to. The door opened without waiting for an answer. A manager stepped halfway inside, eyes flicking between them, assessing too quickly, too perceptively. We need to discuss the live, he said carefully. Clips are already spreading. People noticed. Jimin's stomach dropped. Noticed what? He asked, though he already knew the audio, the manager replied. The moment before the feed cut. Jungkook felt Jimin's wrist tense in his grasp. He didn't let go. There's speculation, the manager continued, voice measured but tight. Emotional instability. Relationship narratives. You know how this goes. Jimin laughed, hollow. Of course, he said. It always goes like this. Jungkook stepped forward before Jimin could retreat further. We didn't do anything wrong, he said. The manager raised an eyebrow. That depends on perspective. The room felt suddenly hostile, every surface reflecting versions of themselves they didn't recognize. Jimin gently pulled his wrist free, not in anger but necessity, and faced the manager fully. I lost control, Jimin said. That's on me. Jungkook turned to him sharply. No. Jimin shot him a warning look. Don't. But Jungkook didn't stop. He's not unstable, he said firmly. He's human. And maybe if we weren't treated like machines, that's enough, the manager cut in. This isn't the time. Jimin's hands trembled at his sides. When is it? He asked softly. When is it the time to admit we're breaking? The manager hesitated, and that hesitation said more than words ever could. Right now, he said, the priority is damage control. We'll release a statement. You'll rest. Jungkook, you should avoid being seen together for a while. The sentence hung in the air, heavy and deliberate. Jimin nodded immediately. Understood. Jungkook stared at him, disbelief flashing across his face. You're just going to accept that? Jimin didn't look at him. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do, Jungkook said, voice rising despite himself. You always do. The manager sighed. This conversation is over. No, Jungkook snapped. It's not. Silence fell, thick and dangerous. Jungkook turned to Jimin, eyes burning. Is this what you meant earlier? He demanded. That we let them decide every time? Jimin's control finally shattered. What do you want from me? He cried. To fight them? To burn everything down? I'm tired, Jungkook. I don't have anything left to give. The raw honesty stunned the room into stillness. Jungkook's voice softened, but the intensity didn't fade. I don't want you to give, he said. I want you to stop being the only one who loses. The manager cleared his throat. I'll give you a moment, he said stiffly, retreating and closing the door behind him. The second it shut, Jimin collapsed onto the chair, hands covering his face. This is exactly why I was scared, he whispered. The moment it becomes real, everything starts closing in. Jungkook knelt in front of him without thinking, hands gently pulling Jimin's wrists away from his face. Look at me. Jimin resisted for a second, then gave in, eyes glassy and exhausted. I can walk away from the offer, Jungkook said. I can say no. End it tonight. Jimin's eyes widened in alarm. Don't, he said quickly. Don't say that like it's nothing. It's not nothing, Jungkook replied. It's a choice. And you'll regret it, Jimin said. One day, you'll look at me and think of everything you could have been. Jungkook shook his head. No. I'll look at you and know why I stayed. Tears spilled freely now, no attempt to hide them. You shouldn't have to save me, Jimin whispered. I'm not saving you, Jungkook said, resting his forehead against Jimin's. I'm choosing you. There's a difference. They stayed like that, breathing the same air, the world pressing in from all sides. Nothing about this was safe. Nothing about it was simple. But in that moment, honesty burned brighter than fear. Outside the door, consequences waited. Inside, two people stood at the edge of something irreversible, no longer pretending they didn't see it. The hallway outside the dressing room felt colder when they stepped into it, as if the building itself had decided to remind them where they stood. Staff moved past them with practiced neutrality, eyes sliding away too quickly, pretending not to notice the tension clinging to their skin. Jimin walked ahead, posture perfect, shoulders squared, every step measured. Jungkook followed half a pace behind, watching the familiar transformation with a mix of admiration and quiet rage. This was the version of Jimin the world demanded, beautiful, controlled, untouchable. And it was killing him. They were ushered into a conference room that smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink. A long table dominated the space, too formal for a conversation that felt anything but. Another manager was already there, tablet in hand, expression unreadable. We'll be brief, she said. The clip is trending. We need to contain the narrative before it grows legs. Jimin sat, hands folded neatly on the table. What narrative? He asked, voice calm to the point of sounding distant. Emotional overload, she replied. Fatigue. Pressure. The fans will sympathize. We'll emphasize rest and unity. Jungkook leaned back against the wall instead of sitting, arms crossed, jaw tight. And the part where he asked me not to leave, he asked flatly. The manager didn't flinch. That will be reframed. Jimin closed his eyes for a brief second, a tiny fracture in the composure. Reframed how? As a general statement, she said smoothly. Not directed. Not personal. Jungkook laughed once, sharp and humorless. You're going to erase him. No, she corrected. We're protecting the brand. That was it. Jungkook pushed off the wall and stepped forward. You keep talking like he's a product, he said. Like his fear is a liability you can edit out. The manager's gaze hardened. Watch your tone. Why? Jungkook shot back. Because I might say something real. Jimin turned toward him sharply. Stop, he hissed under his breath. This isn't helping. Jungkook looked at him then, really looked, and saw the exhaustion etched beneath the polish. Isn't it? He asked quietly. Or is it just inconvenient? The room went silent. Jimin stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. I'm fine, he said, too quickly. We'll do the statement. I'll rest. This doesn't have to become a bigger issue. Jungkook's chest tightened. You're doing it again. Jimin's eyes flashed. Because someone has to survive this. The words echoed, raw and unfiltered, before Jimin could stop them. The managers exchanged a look, brief, knowing, uncomfortable. Jungkook softened instantly. You don't have to do it alone, he said. Yes, I do, Jimin replied, voice breaking despite his effort. Because every time you stand next to me like this, every time you look at me like I'm something you're willing to risk for, it makes everything harder. Jungkook took a step closer. I'm not asking you to burn yourself alive for me. I know, Jimin said, tears finally spilling. That's what makes it worse. One of the managers cleared her throat. Perhaps we should give you both a moment. They left, closing the door with a quiet click that felt far too loud. The second they were alone, Jimin's control collapsed. He sank back into the chair, hands gripping the edge like he might fall apart otherwise. You don't understand, he whispered. If they decide I'm unstable, I'm done. If they decide we're a problem together, they won't hesitate to cut one of us loose. Jungkook crouched in front of him again, heart aching. And you think I could live with that? Jimin let out a broken laugh. You'd survive. You always do. That's the problem, Jungkook said. I don't want to just survive anymore. Jimin looked at him then, really looked, and the fear in his eyes was unmistakable. And what if choosing more costs you everything? Jungkook didn't answer right away. He reached out, fingers brushing Jimin's knee, tentative but sure. Then at least it will be something I chose, he said. Not something decided for me. Jimin's shoulders shook as he leaned forward, resting his forehead against Jungkook's. I'm so tired of being brave, he whispered. Then don't be, Jungkook replied. Not with me. They stayed there, breathing together, the weight of the world pressing against the thin walls of the room. Eventually, Jimin straightened, wiping his face, resolve settling into his expression. Not cold this time, but clear. Okay, he said quietly. We do the statement. We play their game. But after that, no more secrets. Jungkook's heart stuttered. You mean that? I have to, Jimin said. Because pretending nearly destroyed me. And I won't survive doing it again. Jungkook nodded, a fierce, relieved smile breaking through the tension. Then whatever comes next, he said, we face it together. For the first time that night, Jimin believed him. The statement went live an hour later, polished and gentle, words chosen like padded armor. Fatigue. Gratitude. Unity. Jimin read it with a steady voice, eyes soft, smile practiced. Jungkook stood beside him, silent, hands clasped behind his back, every muscle locked. The cameras loved it. The comments flooded in with hearts and concern and relief. The world exhaled the moment the lights cut. Jimin's smile vanished. Don't touch me yet, he murmured, barely audible, stepping away before Jungkook could reach for him. Not here. Jungkook swallowed and nodded. He understood the rules. He hated them. They were separated for the night, different cars, different exits, different stories. The city blurred past Jungkook's window, neon bleeding into rain, his phone buzzing relentlessly in his pocket. Messages from producers, from friends, from numbers he didn't have saved. He ignored them all until one notification cut through the noise. Jimin, did you mean it? Jungkook typed back immediately. Every word, yes. I meant all of it. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again then. Come over. I don't want to be alone tonight. Jungkook didn't think. He told the driver to turn around. Jimin's apartment was dark when Jungkook arrived, curtains drawn tight against the city. The door opened before he could knock. Jimin stood there barefoot, hoodie hanging off one shoulder, eyes rimmed red, composure gone. You shouldn't be here, Jimin said. I know, Jungkook replied, stepping inside anyway. The door closed. The quiet was immediate and suffocating. Jimin laughed weakly and leaned back against the door. If someone finds out, they won't, Jungkook said, though he knew it was a fragile promise. Jimin pushed off the door and paced the room, agitation radiating from him. You don't get it, he said. They're already watching more closely. Every move. Every breath. Jungkook followed him with his eyes. I get it, he said. I just don't accept it. Jimin stopped short. That's the difference between us, he said. You still believe you can push back. And you don't. I tried, Jimin snapped, turning to face him. I tried being honest. I tried trusting. And it nearly destroyed me on live television. Jungkook stepped closer, voice low but intense. It destroyed you because you were alone in it. Jimin's breath hitched. You don't know that. I do, Jungkook said. Because the moment you leaned into me, you stopped shaking. The memory flashed between them, heat, tears, a plea whispered without thinking. Jimin looked away, jaw tight. That's exactly why this is dangerous. Jungkook closed the space between them. Say it, he challenged gently. Say what you're afraid of. Jimin's voice came out raw. I'm afraid that if I let myself want you openly, I won't survive losing you. The confession cracked the room open. Jungkook reached out, stopping just short of touching Jimin's arm. And I'm afraid, he said, that if I keep pretending you're not the center of my choices, I'll lose myself. Jimin's eyes burned. You're saying this now, he whispered, when everything is already on fire. Because now it's real, Jungkook replied. Because pretending it isn't almost broke you. Jimin's control finally gave way. He surged forward, gripping Jungkook's shirt, not gentle, not careful. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to me?" he demanded. "You say things like that and expect me to be rational?" Jungkook's hands came up, steadying Jimin by the waist, grounding him. "I expect you to be honest," he said. "Even if it's messy." Jimin laughed through tears. Messy is an understatement. They stood there, breaths mingling, tension crackling between them, desire, fear, anger, devotion all tangled together. This wasn't soft. This wasn't safe. It was real. Jimin pressed his forehead against Jungkook's shoulder, voice breaking. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "I don't know how to love you without losing everything." Jungkook wrapped his arms around him, firm and unyielding. "Then we learn," he said. "Or we fail. But we don't pretend anymore." Jimin closed his eyes, clinging to him like an anchor in rough water. Outside, the city kept breathing, unaware of the quiet rebellion unfolding in the dark. Somewhere deep inside, both of them knew this was the point of no return. Night deepened around Jimin's apartment, the city lights leaking in through the edges of the curtains like restless thoughts neither of them could quiet. Jimin was the first to pull back, hands sliding from Jungkook's shirt as if the closeness itself scared him. "If we keep standing like this," he said shakily, "I'm going to forget all the reasons I'm supposed to be careful." Jungkook didn't move away. "Maybe that's the problem," he replied. "You're always careful. Even with your own heart." Jimin turned his back, walking toward the window, pressing his palm against the glass. Outside, cars moved like distant veins of light, people living lives untouched by cameras or contracts. "Careful is the only reason I'm still here," he said. "You think I don't want to be reckless? I dream about it. But recklessness has consequences I'm the one who pays for." Jungkook joined him at the window, close but not touching. "I'd pay them with you," he said quietly. Jimin laughed bitterly. "That's easy to say when it's not your name that gets dissected." Jungkook's voice hardened. "You think mine doesn't?" He turned to face Jimin fully. "You think I don't wake up wondering who I'm allowed to be today? I just learned how to hide it better." Jimin's shoulders sagged. "That's what scares me," he admitted. "You're strong enough to survive pretending forever. I'm not." The honesty in his voice cut deeper than any accusation. Jungkook reached out, resting his hand on the window beside Jimin's, close enough to feel the warmth radiating from him. "Then stop pretending with me," he said. "Even if it's the only place you don't." Jimin turned, eyes glossy, anger and longing colliding. "And when it leaks?" he demanded. "When someone notices? When a picture surfaces, or a rumor turns sharp? What happens then?" Jungkook didn't hesitate. "Then we deal with it." "That's not an answer," Jimin snapped. "That's faith." "Yes," Jungkook said. "It is." Jimin stared at him, chest rising and falling too fast. "You really believe love is worth destroying the illusion for?" he whispered. "I believe living half alive is worse," Jungkook replied. The room felt smaller again, filled with words that couldn't be taken back. Jimin turned away, running a hand through his hair, pacing like a caged animal. "I hate that you make sense," he muttered. "I hate that when you say things like that, I want to believe you." Jungkook watched him, heart aching. "I don't need you to decide tonight," he said. "I just need you to stop pushing me away because you're afraid I might choose you." Jimin stopped pacing. Slowly, he looked back. "And what if I do the opposite?" he asked. "What if I choose you and it costs me everything?" Jungkook stepped closer, voice soft but unyielding. "Then I won't let you lose it alone." Jimin's composure finally shattered. "I'm exhausted," he said, tears spilling freely now. "I'm exhausted from being strong, from being perfect, from pretending love doesn't hurt me. And when you walked into that room tonight, when I said those words without thinking, it felt like the truth tearing out of me." Jungkook cupped Jimin's face gently, thumbs brushing away tears. "That truth didn't ruin you," he said. "It saved you." Jimin leaned into the touch despite himself, eyes closing for a brief, vulnerable second. "Promise me something," he whispered. "Anything," Jungkook replied. "Don't become another beautiful thing I'm not allowed to keep." Jungkook rested his forehead against Jimin's, breath warm, steady. "I can't promise the world won't try to take us apart," he said. "But I can promise I won't be the one who leaves." Jimin inhaled sharply, clutching Jungkook's sleeve as if anchoring himself to that promise. Outside, sirens wailed faintly, a reminder of how fragile quiet moments were. Inside, two people stood stripped of pretense, fear still present but no longer in control. For the first time since the live, Jimin didn't feel like he was falling, but he felt like he was standing on the edge of something terrifying and real and choosing not to step back. Morning came too quickly. Grey light seeped through the curtains, turning the apartment quiet and exposed. Jimin hadn't slept. Jungkook knew it the moment he saw him standing in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a mug that had long gone cold, shoulders tense like he was bracing for impact. "You stayed," Jimin said without turning around. Jungkook leaned against the doorway. "I said I would." Jimin exhaled slowly, a sound caught somewhere between relief and dread. "That's what scares me," he replied. "You don't say things lightly." Jungkook stepped closer. "Neither do you." Jimin finally turned, eyes tired but sharp. "Last night felt like standing in front of a fire," he said. "Warm enough to want it. Dangerous enough to know it could burn everything down. And yet you didn't step away," Jungkook said. Jimin's jaw tightened. "Because I'm selfish," he shot back. "Because for once I wanted something just for me." "That doesn't make you selfish," Jungkook said quietly. "It makes you human." Jimin laughed bitterly. "Human doesn't survive this industry." Jungkook reached for the mug and took it from Jimin's hands, setting it aside. "Neither does pretending you're made of steel," he said. "You broke on live because you've been carrying too much alone." Jimin's eyes darkened. "You think I don't know that?" he snapped. "I could feel myself cracking, Jungkook. I knew the second it happened that they'd never forget it. That I'd just handed them another weakness to manage." "They didn't see weakness," Jungkook said. "They saw truth. They saw something they'll want to control," Jimin corrected. "Or erase." The words hung heavy between them. Jungkook moved closer, voice firm. "Then let them try," he said. "I'm done letting fear dictate what we're allowed to feel." Jimin looked at him like he was both salvation and disaster. "You say that now," he whispered. "But when the pressure hits you, when they threaten contracts, futures, everything you've worked for, will you still say it?" Jungkook didn't look away. "Yes." Jimin shook his head slowly. "You're terrifying," he said. "Do you know that?" Jungkook gave a humorless smile. "So are you." Jimin's composure cracked again, just a little. "I hate how safe you make this feel," he admitted. "It makes me reckless." "I hate how much you think love has to be a liability," Jungkook replied. Jimin turned away, pressing his palm to the counter. "Because it is," he said. "Because every time I've let myself care too much, it's been used against me." Jungkook stepped behind him, close enough that Jimin could feel his presence without being touched. "Then let me be the exception," he said softly. Jimin's breath stuttered. "You don't get to decide that alone." "I know," Jungkook replied. "That's why I'm asking." Jimin closed his eyes. "If we do this," he said, voice barely steady, "we don't get to be half honest. I can't survive another version of us that only exists in shadows." Jungkook nodded. "No more shadows. And no heroics," Jimin added quickly. "I don't want you sacrificing your future out of guilt." Jungkook stepped around him, forcing Jimin to meet his gaze. "This isn't guilt," he said. "This is clarity." The words hit Jimin harder than anger ever could. He swallowed, eyes burning. "Then say it plainly," he challenged. "Say what you're choosing." Jungkook didn't hesitate. "I'm choosing you," he said. "Not as a secret. Not as an accident. As a person I refuse to keep pretending doesn't matter more than fear." Jimin's breath broke. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not," Jungkook said. "It's just honest." Tears slid down Jimin's cheeks, unchecked. "I don't know how to protect you from what comes with me," he whispered. Jungkook reached out at last, resting his hands on Jimin's shoulders, steady and warm. "You don't have to," he said. "Just don't push me away when it gets hard." Jimin leaned forward, forehead pressing into Jungkook's chest, the place that had caught him when everything collapsed. "I'm scared," he admitted. But I don't want to run anymore. Jungkook wrapped his arms around him, holding him like a decision already made. Then don't, he murmured. Stay. Let's face it. Awake. Outside, the day continued, headlines forming, opinions sharpening, a world ready to dissect them. Inside the apartment, there was no performance, no script, no mask. Just two people choosing truth over silence, fully aware of the cost, and no longer willing to pretend that love was something they could afford to lose. The decision didn't arrive with fireworks or certainty. It settled quietly, like something heavy finally placed down. They spent the morning together in small, ordinary ways that felt almost sacred. Jungkook washed the cups Jimin had abandoned, sleeves rolled up, movements slow and deliberate. Jimin watched him from the counter, chin resting on his palm, memorizing details he used to pretend were insignificant, the slight furrow in Jungkook's brow when he focused, the unconscious hum under his breath. This was the part no one ever warned them about, how intimacy wasn't always dramatic, how sometimes it was just presence. I have a meeting this afternoon, Jimin said eventually, voice careful. They'll want reassurances. Promises. Jungkook nodded. And you? I'll give them what I can, Jimin replied. He hesitated, then added, but not myself. Jungkook met his eyes, something like relief softening his features. That's enough. They stood there for a moment, the future stretching out uncertain and unkind, but no longer faceless. When it was time to leave, Jimin reached for Jungkook's hand without thinking. He froze, realization flashing across his face, then didn't let go. Not here, he said softly. But not never. Jungkook squeezed his hand once before releasing it. I'll take that. At the door, Jimin paused. If this gets ugly, he said, not looking back, promise me you won't disappear. Jungkook answered without hesitation. I won't. The days that followed weren't easy. There were meetings filled with careful language, rumors that flared and died, moments when fear crept back in like an old habit. But something had shifted. Jimin no longer carried it alone. Jungkook no longer hid behind silence. They learned how to exist in the open without announcing themselves to the world. They learned that courage wasn't always loud, that sometimes it was choosing to stay after the lights went out. And when the memory of that live resurfaced Jimin's tears, the whispered plea, it no longer felt like a fracture, it felt like a beginning point. One night, weeks later, they sat side by side on a balcony overlooking the city, shoulders touching, no cameras in sight. Jimin leaned his head against Jungkook's shoulder, light and certain. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? Jungkook asked. For not leaving, Jimin replied. Jungkook rested his cheek against Jimin's hair, heart steady. I never planned to. The city breathed around them, vast and indifferent, but they were still there, tired, honest, choosing each other not because it was safe, but because it was real.